I'm going to give remarks standing on behalf of ABSIP Chairperson, Mr. Lithabo Malaj. The facilitator, Chairperson of ABSIP SCUL, Mr. Malaji, Secretary and Executive of ABSIP SCUL, Sisters Organization, members of the panel, ABSIP National Guest Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to our last chapter seminar, the economic transformative role of the land reform agenda. This year marks the 26th year since the land reform agenda started. This agenda started with the end of apartheid regime in South Africa in 1994, where the newly elected government introduced a program of land reform, which consisted of 3 components, namely land redistribution, land restitution, and land tenure. It is important for us as youth to engage in a discussion of such a topic before we even talk about the economy itself, because land plays an important role in our economy. Let us kick off today's seminar and get a job well done in an efficient and cooperative manner. I thank you. Mr. David Maji, the time is yours. Mr. David Maji.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is David Matsi, as they've alluded. I'm currently the secretary of BMF Polokwane branch, which stands for the Black Management Forum in Polokwane. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has made it to the event, and also welcome everyone who is here as a delegate, as well as coming from different organizations, and also not forgetting our keynote speaker who will be speaking, addressing the topic with us today, just to ensure that we all here for the same event. This is the ABSIP event. The theme of the event is the economic transformative role of the land reform agenda. Without any waste of time, I would like to welcome the 2 speakers from the Black Lawyers Association, and as well as the ABSIP UL. I don't know it in full, so I believe that they'll also share that with us. Without any waste of time, the first speaker will follow, and then after that, the second speaker will join in. I'll take it from there. Can we have a delegate from the Black Lawyers Association?
In the absence of the speaker from them, may we proceed with the meeting?
So we are confirming we don't have a speaker from the Black Lawyers Association as well as the ABSIP UL.
I think they've not signed in yet. We'll ask them to say a word at the end of the program.
Okay. Okay. The second item will be the introduction of our keynote speaker, which I was also shocked to receive his profile, which also looks as a book. I understand he's an author himself, but then to realize that his profile is equivalent to the books that he has written is quite a shock. But then it also shows that people are really using their talent and their time to ensure that they do the most in ensuring that they share the knowledge with us. Our keynote speaker is Mr. Matumi Chidi, who was born and bred here in Limpopo, in Butogon. He holds an LLB degree, which he has obtained from the University of Limpopo, the very same university that most of us have had a privilege of being graduates to that particular university. He has written his first book under the title of Landlessness is a Constitutional Sin, and then he had his second book. The first book was published in 2018, and the second book was published in 2019-2020, respectively. The second book is titled Land Reform, Nation's Commitment and a Constitutional Mandate, which was released in 2019-2020, respectively. I will paraphrase through his profile, but then I would kindly ask that the leadership of ABSIP share it with the members and those that have attended the event for their benefit, because it is quite an interesting profile that they will be able to share, to check, and also look into some of the cases that he has mentioned here. Relevant to these two books that he runs, he has his practice under the name of and style of Chidi Atenis, and he's also been participating in the society in various capacities, which activities partly contributed to him writing these two books. His books are research-based, legal research-based. He contributes in debates in the society and equality on the land reform. His work on policy issues is expressed in his book, In a Society. He participated in the Parliament ad hoc committee on the amendment of the Section 25 of the Constitution. If still invited, he may participate from time to time. He discusses matters of land and other related land matters faced by the communities. His main message is the Constitution's demand and the state must facilitate access to land, Section 25, subsection 5 of the Constitution. Land is a human right as issued in rights issues related to it are resources from nature. One of those is water. Believing strongly that we need access to water, he has taken his municipality to court. There is a link that has been shared for that. Hence, I'm mentioning that we should at least have access to the profile so that we are able to also look further to some of the links that he has shared. The above case is an ongoing case. He has done it so well against the Speaker of Parliament, against the Speaker. The relief is for the Parliament to make a law for it in the main and unused state land to be given to those deserving to deserve it. Further, it is for the state to consider facilitating access to any other unused land. His approach is not limited to rural and farming land. He has also shared a link for that as well. On the pages of the links on that part, we'll also look at, he believes strongly that when the state fails human rights, it should be engaged. And if it does not cooperate, legal steps must be taken to compel it to. Information about the book's central message, the state has failed to facilitate the access to many people. There should be an achievement of land equality, and that from the land, many opportunities may open up, equality for people to tell. That is his brief profile that I've shared with you. And then I wouldn't really want to waste much of his time. He's a speaker, so I believe that he has more to share with us. So, Mr. Chidi, I take this opportunity to welcome you, and the floor is yours. You can share with us.
Thank you, Deza, and all those who have joined us in these discussions. We are having a very interesting period in the country when the main discussion or the main discourse is the issue of land reform. It's important, and I will show later on why I think it's important, because we basically want reforms insofar as matters of what is bestowed to us by nature is concerned. Let me greet the following. The chair of the branch, UL ABSIP, and the secretary as well, both Mr. Malachi and Ms. Madima. Thanks for hosting me this evening. I hope we're going to have an interesting and enlivening debate as we go on. I understand as well that we have national leadership of ABSIP. They are, it appears, individuals who are joining us from the profession, possibly more are still coming. I'm invited this evening to discuss with you my understanding of the role of land reform in matters of transformation. In such a discussion, the first thing that I think we need to do is to investigate where land reform is located in our society, but also where transformation is located in our society, because it can't be in vacuum. They are meant to serve, in my view, some purpose. So it is that purpose which I think we need to investigate. So in investigating this, my approach was then that what we should do is to inquire from the Constitution. And the first thing in my view was that we have equality. Equality is what underpins the two programs, transformation as well as land reform. And to that extent, we therefore need to understand what equality means in our society. The understanding, in my view, of equality, if we want to have a full understanding of it, is to check where it's located in the Constitution. And you go to section 1 of the Constitution, which says the type of society we build should be one that is based on the achievement of equality. And what that means, in my view, is that the Constitution recognizes that we can never be equal. But what we should do is to build a society which indicates that we are serious about equality and their progress. Insofar as the law is concerned, and programs in government, in the private sector and elsewhere, which show that we are indeed serious about the achievement of equality. So the first section in the Constitution, which is a foundational section, says that in everything we do, we should seek to achieve equality. Now, what type of equality are we looking for? The type of equality we are looking for is equality in dignity. We should have equal enjoyment of dignity. I'm not saying indignity, I'm saying in dignity. And what it means is that if the person next door, in my neighbor, in my neighborhood, it's not doing well, and I happen to be doing well, my assets should not necessarily be taken from me so that I'm as poor as the one next door. What we should rather do is to seek to improve the quality of life of the person in the neighborhood. And that is what the Constitution calls for, because in the preamble to the Constitution, there is a commitment to improve the quality of life of each citizen. And you should underline this word citizen, but we'll discuss it in future. But again, it says free the potential of each person. Each person means each person in the country. So you then have empowerment programs in terms of which those who are not as fortunate as those who are fortunate, their quality of life will be improved. So these things are linked. The freeing of potential and the improvement of the quality of life. They are linked with section 1 in the Constitution, which seeks the achievement of equality, because we uplift the one who is not as fortunate as the one who is empowered. So that understanding of equality then tells us that the land reform should possibly be meant for something. But I need to indicate before I go to land reform that what was agreed upon, and it's in the Constitution as well, is that there should be empowerment programs. Empowerment programs, you find them in a variety of sections. In the main section, it's section 9 of the Constitution, which is the right, in my view, for the achievement of equality. And the achievement of equality goes back to where I started. The person in the neighborhood who needs assistance for their quality of life to be improved, that we focus on that person, not ignoring the one who's empowered, so that we have a sense of equality. Now, you then have these empowerment programs. You have your broad-based Black economic empowerment, and you've got the Procurement Act, which are meant to ensure that there's preferential treatment insofar as Africans, amongst other racial groups, are preferred in the procurement of state tenders. But also you have the Equity Act, the one that applies in the employment space. This legislation, pieces of legislation, are meant to give effect to what is contained in the Constitution. So we need to understand, therefore, that this transformation is meant to give effect to what is a commitment in the Constitution, which is in Section 1 of the Constitution, but also Section 9, because the law that you make should flow from that particular section. And I say this because you might be tempted to think that I should go straight to Section 25 of the Constitution. I'm going to go there. But I want to show you that what informs any transformation project flows from the principles in Section 9 of the Constitution. Those who are close to state procurement would be aware of Section 217 of the Constitution. Also, it enshrines principles in Section 9 of the Constitution. So I'm saying, therefore, to achieve this transformation for the purpose of attaining a state of equilibrium, equality, we need to have a variety of programs. Now, then the question was, and this is the question that appears to have been put at the negotiations before the Constitution: what role would land play in the change in society, in ensuring that we move from the barbaric system that we had before 1994 to the system that we wish to have? And then you then had Section 9, Section 25, which I'm going to go into now. This section, it's a transformative section. It's meant to give effect to transformation. And if you look at the particular section, it emphasizes reforms. What type of reforms? What is commonly discussed, and it's very unfortunate because the discussion is limited to that aspect, is land reform. But if you read two subsections, the first is subsection 4, it talks about reforms as to access to natural resources on an equitable basis. Now, what is your natural resources? Mining, mineral resources, the sand. You know, the richest guy in Africa it's in Nigeria, and he made a lot of money from natural resources, the soil, the sand, the cement, and related material. The Constitution calls for reforms insofar as access to natural resources are concerned. And these things are big because if you think, for instance, about tourism, you've got natural resources there. Everything is natural resources. So the Constitution says you need to transform, for instance, that sector. But I'm limiting myself to Section 25 without going into specific sectors. I'll come back to that aspect later on. I said the first is subsection 4 of Section 25 of the Constitution. The second is Section 25, subsection 8 of the Constitution, which says you can walk away, they use the word departure, from Section 25 of the Constitution. And when you do so, you should do so for the purposes of achieving reforms related to land. I'm not saying land reform. Reforms related to land. Reforms related to water. But it starts with land reform. And when you go to reforms related to water, the first point is water reforms. So there are 4 types of reforms which are specifically mentioned in subsection 8 of the Constitution. So this section, if you were to look at it broadly, I know what we are taught at university, and it's very interesting that we're having this discussion at a forum of students. Generally, it is that, Section 25, it's a property clause. It's not a property clause. One of the key components of that particular section is that it is an economic clause. It is meant to transform the economy and to give you economic freedom, possibly in your lifetime, as some may say. So we need to understand then land reform in that context, that what it is meant to do, and this is the topic I'm invited to talk to, what it is meant to achieve is to contribute to the transformation in society. What is the purpose of transformation in society? The purpose of transformation in society is so that you have ultimately the achievement of equality. We transform, we focus on those who are excluded inherently mostly were Africans because of the two systems of oppression, colonialism and the recent monster that we all know, apartheid. That we focus on those who are excluded, so that in their changed quality of life, they will be equal with those whose lives are bettered. So it's a change for the purpose of betterment. You know, there are a lot of discussions whether indeed this transformation is being achieved or whether people are abusing it. That's something else. What I'm discussing and I'm focusing my attention on is what was envisaged in the Constitution for land reform to play. So that's where we are. And my take, therefore, is that if you are to understand the purpose of land reform, you can't certainly ignore the society in which we operate, where we come from and where we seek to go. Now, who's we is the people of the country, because the Constitution binds everyone in the country. I'm not talking about those who are opposing transformation here. I'm talking about the constitutional commitments and objectives as enshrined in the preamble and more so section 1 of the Constitution. And there would be a variety of sections which support the equality issue. Now, I can't close my discussion or my contribution without attempting to show how, in practical effect, moving from theory, how this land reform may contribute to the achievement of equality through transformation, that is. David touched some very interesting issue earlier on about water. Now, the former Justice Seneke, in one of his writings, or it was a recorded interview I read somewhere in my research on this subject, he said to have freedom without water, it's nonsense. I think he said something to that effect. And he's right, you can't have freedom without water. If therefore you think that you are free, if you don't have water, you should wake up and smell the coffee. Of course, to some extent we are free because we can talk on this platform, we can talk on other platforms, we move as we wish, except recently when we had COVID-19 regulations, which of course were necessary because of the challenges that we faced in the country. But he said to have a society that calls itself free when it doesn't have water, and I agree with him, it's certainly nonsense. Now, then let's check how land is located in our society. We are born into the land. When we die, we are buried into the land. When we live and before we die, everything we do is dependent on land. And this organization, ABSIP, is an organization in the financial sector. And the financial sector is greatly important in the capitalist society, the type of society that has been created for us and for us to continue with, unfortunately. You can't have the economy without land. It's not possible. One of the languages, Bari Likumu, Letachimu. You may interpret it in many ways. But in the African sense, it meant that wealth is from land. And that is great wisdom. If I were you, I would close my eyes and put a question to myself, what could that statement mean? Wealth is from the land. And once we have that discussion, you will then understand, and I think you do as well, that this explains why in most instances, people who have benefited from the land would fight so much hard not to include you in the land benefit, because they know that once you are included in access to land, your key to economic freedom is handed over to you. It is dependent on you to abuse the key and not unlock the door to freedom. But unfortunately, when we talk about matters of land, some of the aspects require a lot of work, which unfortunately in the work that we do of varying our ties, we think that we should not do, amongst others, agriculture and many others. So I'm saying to you, therefore, that you really cannot have an economy without land. And what do I mean? Because this is, a lot of times when we discuss these issues, we don't give practical examples which, you know, enlighten people about these things. Think about the construction sector. There's a lot of money that goes into that sector. And the money that goes into that sector benefits people in that particular sector. It starts, as I said, with the soil, it goes to the sand, it goes to many other supporting industries, supporting construction, and there's actual construction. You cannot have a building without the soil. You cannot have a building without sand. You cannot have a building without water. That's why in subsection 4 of the Constitution, it is demanded that there should be access to water on an equitable basis. That provision was included in the Constitution so as to ensure that the industries such as construction and many others do indeed benefit Africans. And if they are to benefit Africans, amongst others, and Africans include colored persons, by the way. If they are to include Africans, what you will then have is the empowerment that we spoke about, that you improve the quality of life, and it's linked back to the preamble in the Constitution. You can go to sectors such as tourism. You can go to sectors, you know, there's a lot of water processing business that is going around in the country. That's from nature, you know. And when we therefore discuss these issues of land reform, we should not ignore the related reforms I spoke about in subsection 8, such as your fishery and others, because fishery is dependent on access to water. So if you have access to water, you may likely take part in the fishery business. So these are interlinked programs in the Constitution, and the one that I spoke about natural resources, it connects all these things. You can talk about land, you can talk about fishery, you can talk about water, you can talk about the soil, you can talk about anything. So any industry or sector that we can partake in is likely to be dependent on access to land. We cannot talk about mining because it's obvious. We cannot talk about agriculture because it's obvious to many. There are many other sectors which are very directly linked, and it's easy to link with them with access to land and natural resources, which many of you know. Now, an organization such as ABSIP will be interested in a subject of this nature on the basis that the people who make money from these sectors, they usually diversify in many other sectors, including the financial sector. And the financial sector has many sub-branches. You can talk about banking, you can talk about insurance. There are so many other sectors in the financial sector, which the money that is made from the raw economy is then invested in those different sectors, and people grow in business insofar as such is concerned. That is my view insofar as the contribution of land reform is concerned towards transformation and equality. So my take is that, therefore, because, and I did not deliberately, I did not discuss the role of land on religion, the role of land on, you know, youth development and many other aspects, because young people who don't have space to play, they usually don't become healthy. They don't grow as they should. There are many other aspects of land which are important, and land is not important only for agriculture, as we are taught by some who would want us to think that the only important aspect of land is for purposes of agriculture. It's not, and it should not be made to be such. I think I should end it here because this discussion is for purpose of interaction, and at this stage I think I should pause. But before I do so, I see there is an old man here, Mr. Makwela. Mr. Makwela is a pardon mentor, an acting judge of the High Court here in Polokwane. He's with us. He has joined us, and I'm not discriminating others, but I think I would be doing an injustice if I were not to recognize him. My leader as well, Mr. Ntswane, is here. He's the deputy chair of the BLA in the province, and quite a number of others. The contribution, David, I make, it's that in essence that there should be efforts that are made to ensure that there is indeed transformation insofar as land equality is concerned, because ultimately when we discuss a topic such as this one, we should arrive at a point where we agree that there should be land equality. So you link section 25 with section 9, then you have land equality. But to achieve that, the vehicle through which you've got to do it is transformation programs, including land reform. That's my contribution for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you for alerting me about the other special guest that we have. You know, I was in the you are greeted as honorable as you are, and I'm also aware that my deputy chairperson of the BMF Polokwane branch is also here, Mr. Ntswane. So yes, and thank you very much for the presentation. And as you were presenting, there was one question that I needed clarity on, and not necessarily for me, but then for the benefit of everyone. The issue of land is agriculturized. You know, we have not discussed it into its in totality. If it is discussed, it is discussed from rented views and with no facts. You know, we are discussing it from the media perspective, you know, where no one really touches deep into the topic itself. And I'm here with your second book, you know, and I just want to read a line from page 140, where you speak about land is everything. Land is everything good. For a colonized people, the most essential value, because the most concrete, is first and foremost the land. The land will bring them bread and above all dignity. The judge in the matter was in land is dignity. Following the ways above, it was further held that thus strip someone of their source of livelihood, you strip them of their dignity too. This is a correct statement by the Concord. Without dignity, we have a diminished quality of life. It is a meaningless one, meaningless life, yet the right to dignity. I would just like you to briefly, you know, just touch base on the topic of land, because we have realized that the government continuously perpetuated the idea that land is meant for agriculture. We have seen it with their recent application for leased land for the farms.
Yes.
So if we continuously say that land is not meant for agriculture, but then the government always channels us and directs us into applying for land for agricultural purposes, what are we therefore saying about the other land that you must be speaking to and all the other benefits that are for the land?
Yes, no, thanks. I you know, a person like the president of the country is somebody who played a very important role in the transformation trajectory. He's the first chair of the Employment Equity Commission. So from that point of view, I think he understood the meaning of transformation. But don't forget that he chaired the Constitutional Assembly, the body that drafted and adopted the Constitution. I don't think that he doesn't understand the role of transformation, but also he's not my age, he's old. He should know better the importance of land, that it is not limited to agriculture. I mean, you can imagine he grew up in a township, and in a township you stay in a very small yard. You just have the house. You don't even have space for a flower. You don't have space for trees. So he would know, and I know that government emphasizes the issue of human settlement as well, because in the main, their program is that land is for human settlement where we stay and for agriculture. that is not so, and I've indicated why it is not so. As to why government is doing it, I really don't know, because they should know better. I mean, the chairperson, I know he understands heritage wholeheartedly, of the ad hoc committee on the amendment of the constitution, is that Matolo Mutsekga surely knows better than me as to the importance of land, for instance, on religion, and African religion inclusive, not only the mainstream religion or the religion or types or forms of religions that are generally practiced in society. I really don't know and understand why government is doing that. They decided, and it's supported by what they did, in addition to announcing the release of land for agricultural purposes, limited to agriculture. They tell you further that it is only mainly in rural areas where you should have access or facilitation of access to land. And this is supported by this fact. They said Gauteng and Western Cape, you are not going to have this release of land from the state to the people. Why? There's just no reason. I mean, they just announced, they don't give reasons why they're excluding Gauteng and Western Cape. But let me tell you what I think, and this is my assumption. It's because the two are mainly urban. And I've read government policies. You can talk about any policy. I've read government policies on land, and their emphasis is farming communities, rural communities. They are not going to tell you that they're going to facilitate access to you in an urban center. But opportunities lie there. And we come to urban centers for opportunities. And we come here, you rent and it's expensive. So my brother, the land is important. That's why where you started with the quote from Fanon by Judge Piche, I think it's Judge Piche, in the Constitutional Court when he was 18 years as a judge in the matter. He simply says to you, you can't have dignity without land. It's true. We are accommodated everywhere in our offices, where we stay, everywhere else, except where the oppressor wanted us to be in rural areas. That's where we are likely slightly not accommodated. Of course, to some extent we are, because we are given permission by a traditional leader to stay where we stay. So an African is accommodated in Africa, but people who are not from Africa, they own land in Africa. The Judge Piche was saying that without this land, you are not going to have full access to the economy. The one who has ownership of land and therefore full enjoyment of land is going to employ you. And when you enter the economy, you mainly enter as an employee. That's why in many discussions that we have, we think that it's well and good for the state and those who are playing a leading role in the economy to employ people, when we are supposed to be calling for the empowerment of people and not only employment. I think I've attempted to do justice to the question, my brother. Back to you, David.
That's so much I can agree. However, the questions keep on pouring now. I had few two that I wanted to ask, but then I think let me just shoot straight to the ones that have been asked by the participants here. There's a series of questions here. I will just shoot straight to the fourth one. Not that I'm a beneficiary or an end user of the product, but then someone is asking the issue of access to land to growers and farmers of marijuana. Is it not part of economic beneficiation to the people of the land and the commercialization, the license and permits?
It is. It serves many purposes. It's spiritual. Remember, the people who use it for spiritual purposes. It's spiritual. It's economic. And it may serve that purpose as well, the purpose of the economy. Of course, I try to limit my discussions to the economy because of the nature of the organization that has invited me to be on this platform. But, the example you gave of Dacha, it's our it's our tree, and it's used by people who have wisdom for many purposes, not only smoking. I think the aspect people are exposed to is smoking, and there are people who enjoy smoking it, by the way, and there's no problem with that. I mean, if you enjoy smoking, I don't smoke anything, But people who smoke, I'm not there to judge them. And if they enjoy it, let them smoke it. But remember, it's not limited to that. There are many other aspects of benefits that may be derived from investing in Dakar. For instance, the oil that is produced from it, amongst others. And I know in 2005 there was a program from the Department of Agriculture to invest in the green economy. They wanted to extract a lot of oil from many trees. And I don't know where the program is and whether it's still advanced, but it may serve that purpose as well. So yeah, I agree that it will serve an economic purpose as well as spiritual purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was also important that you clarified that you don't use it for your own benefit.
No, if I were using it, I would say it. I don't think there's a problem with using it. There isn't. That's that I don't smoke even a simple cigarette. But if I were using it, I'm not saying that it's better that I'm not using it. Those who use it, it's fine. Let them use it. They have reasons why they are using it. Let's not criticize them and think that because we are not using it, I'm not using it, it's better.
Okay. The second question that would like to get clarity on is that can you explain the difference between reforms related to land and land reforms?
Yeah, well, land it's land, just access to land. You access land for purpose of residence, for purpose of agriculture and others. But the reforms related to land include anything that comes from the land. And I'll give an example. The one that I touched earlier on was fishery. Fishery is related to perhaps water, not really land. It's related to water. So if you were to talk about reforms to water or reforms related to water, you say, what is water? Here is water, pure water as it is, but which industry are dependent on water? And your question, because it's limited to land, perhaps I need to come back to that issue. There is a mushroom of your fruit and veggies in many parts of towns in the country. What has happened there is that somebody said, I'm going to use the old system that existed in villages and establish small markets in urban areas. I'm going to have a database of farmers who produce different products, but they're not going to struggle with the market. They produce and deliver to me, and I run merchandise. There will be different people who take care of their products. One potato, the other onion, and others. So what is related to land is the industry and the products that are obtained from the land. So when the Constitution says land reform and reforms related to land, we can actually capitalize on the meaning of related reforms and push for the transformation of each sector in the economy. But not only in the economy, and I limit myself to the economy because of the nature of the platform, but a related land reform for the purpose of religious purposes, for health reasons, for many other purposes. So if you were to you were to use the subsection 8 of the section 25 of the Constitution, you can actually achieve a lot of transformation in all segments of society and in all sectors of society. So reforms related, and that's your question from one of the participants. It's a very broad term. It's something that we have not paid attention to, and if we were to pay attention to it, we can actually pack it at subsection 8 of the Constitution and inquire what it means. And once we inquire what it means, there's no sector that is not going to be affected by the transformation trajectory that we'll embark on in the country. And it goes back to section 1 of the Constitution, which is the achievement of equality and the improvement, the preamble of the quality of life of each person in society. Thank you for the question.
I think for the few that are coming, can you just kindly get a piece of paper and just note them so that I give you a series of 3 questions and then you answer them collectively than to answer per question?
Okay.
From the first questions that were asked by Sipho, more of them are coming as statements. The second question was, the protection of the collective right to land and natural resources is critical because access to land and natural resources has a direct bearing on the very identity and existence of the people of the soil. Any comment around that? And the third question was, can we explore the recognition of indigenous customary law in the light of Richveld case and the Restitution of Land Rights Act 22 of 1994?
The first question is, oh, are you going to the third one?
I'm going to the third one, but then I can repeat the first question if you need clarity on.
Okay, no, I can, well, maybe let's take them one by one because I don't have a pen with me, unfortunately.
Take them like.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me try the first one. The first one. No. The question is very important because is it Sipho who put the question? Because I think you mentioned Sipho.
Yeah, it's Sipho.
Oh, okay. Advocate Mantule is welcome, and as all others are. No, look. What he says is the connection between land and natural resources. It's important for our existence. I think that says it all. You should know that land is a resource from nature. Number one. Number two, land is an important resource of nature. You can't have nature without land. You can't have land without nature. These things are interrelated. Now, we exist on Earth, and on Earth we exist on land. And everything that we get, the spectacles you wear, if you were to investigate what is made of them, the clothes we wear, the telecommunication we have, and everything, all those things, if you were to investigate what they come from or what they are made of, you will come to agree with me that none of those things can exist without the land and resources which are birthed by the land. So he says, for our existence, we depend on the two. It's true. I mean, the water we drink, where does it come from? And you can't live without water. The definition of water includes oxygen. You can't have life without oxygen, because life really gives you life. Water really gives you life. So I agree with him when he says that the two natural resources as well as land, they give us life and we are dependent on them for living. That's why there's a nation's commitment in subsection 4 of the Constitution, section 25, for land reform to be given effect to for natural resources to be facilitated and for us to have equitable access there too, because we are dependent on them for our health, for our spirit, and for our human flesh. I think that's the first question. As I said, I didn't have something to jot down the questions. Maybe we can go to the second question. David? Hello?
Yeah, I'm checking the second question for you. The second question was asked by Warren Ramunyai. It says, can you explain the Land Natives Act of 1914 and the impact it had on the indigenous people of South Africa?
Before the act, and thanks for the question, my brother as well is my colleague. You had a lot of work that had been done to dispossess Africans of what is given to them by the Creator, and who decided that he's going to put Africans in Africa and for Africans to own Africa. So what you actually had in 1913 was the consolidation, the bringing together of pieces of work that had been done till then, that from here we're going to have a uniform approach to the taking of land from Africans. Sol Blackie says, and I was reminded this by that Makwela, the acting judge who's joined us here, that, you know, Solplaki said Africans woke up to be pariahs in their own Africa, in their own continent. I read a very interesting judgment. It's an Australian judgment. It talks to facts similar to the ones we had in the count. And the judge says we shouldn't, and he was talking about the people in Australia, indigenous to that count. He said we should not be mendicants for living in our own country. We should not be beggars for living in our own country. And that is the effect of the 1913 Act. The Act was used, you know, at that stage, because you had the amendment of the Act at a later stage, and the Group Areas Act, they came earlier on, and all other pieces of legislation. But it was the first national effort to ensure that you had a uniform approach, to ensure that a very small percentage of land would be given to Africans. 7 initially, increased to 13 at a later stage. And when the very people, Africans, constituted the greatest majority in the country, but you had people who were so committed to pauperism, who came and said, no, we're going to give a very small portion of land. But what it has done, and this is important for our current debate, you find people living without money, living off nature. And they feed themselves, they have their own health system, and God gave people every piece of knowledge to survive. That's why even animals in the field, they know what to eat when they are ill. So we knew how, and I'm talking about our forebears, our ancestors, they knew how to heal themselves using nature. They knew how to give babies. They knew how, you know, to feed each other. But these people came and said, no, we have discovered this gold and others, and these people don't want to work. What do? We take their land so that they come and work. That's why today you have an African who cries for employment, not for empowerment, because you were taught subsequent to that you should work hard to be employed. And these things are interrelated with the program of 1913. It starts way back in 1510. The Portuguese War in the Cape, and what we know mostly 1650-52, that guy Van Riebeeck guy. So yeah, it played a very important role, because today as we speak, an African is comfortable to be employed, and it's linked with what we had then. You are happy to stay in a township, to stay in a very small portion of land, where you don't even have privacy as a parent, as against the children. You are happy to be there, you're content. And this is the mentality that has been worked on for a very long time. So it has had very adverse effects on our people. People were removed from where they had stayed. You would be relocated to a new place. And when you get there, you don't have a infrastructure, you don't have a building, you don't have anything, you just see what to do there. So that's the barbarism that was ushered in, or not really ushered in, but concretized through the 1913 Act. Thank you. David?
I think the coming question is a little bit more controversial, but then it is what we need. Someone is asking, by the name of Patricia, is asking, what do you make of the land? Let me check the question properly. They're asking, what do you take about the land expropriation without compensation?
So you're saying it's controversial? Okay, now let me answer the question and not ask a question to you. No, it can't be controversial. It really can't be. Who makes it controversial? I mean, this is our Africa. This is our land. Obviously, the person who makes it controversial is the other person who was a visitor and welcomed by Africans. but started what they do best: fight and even kill. So it's not controversial. It's not at all. I mean, it depends, and I think I must come back to my. I haven't lost my cap as a lawyer. Even in law, it can be, and I'll tell you why. The problem we are sitting with was not created by Africans. It was created by people who were not designated for Africa. And this is our land. It's never their land. Now, if you are to solve that problem, and I'm talking as a lawyer, if you make a mistake and think that you're going to use what is called common law, a law that is common to everybody, the law from mainly Britain and Dutch and all of that. All of them are not in Africa, they are in Europe. Once you commit that mistake, you are going to, not arrive at the right solution. And I'll come back, and I said I'm talking as a lawyer. I'll come back and point you to the Constitution, Section 1 of the Constitution, which requires the building of a society based on the achievement of equality. You cannot achieve equality if you emphasize money over access to land. There's no money. Who's going to pay for expropriation? There's no money. So for as long as you say, there should be payment of compensation, and I understand the participant to be saying this is what people are saying, and it's meant to contribute to the debate. But broadly speaking, we should say that such should not be controversial. If it's controversial, it should be controversial to other people, not us. They should not make their agenda our agenda. But I'm saying again, the very section 25, subsection 5 of the Constitution requires the state to facilitate access to land. I've never spoken about the subsection. And if it requires the state to facilitate access to land, how is it going to do that when there's no money? It just cannot be possible. So if you go back to Section 1 of the Constitution, which requires a society based on the achievement of equality, the solution, and this is what has been missing in our law, the solution is to ask in Africa, how do you deal with matters of land? You don't ask an European in Africa how you deal with matters of land. And the answer is still placed or located in Section 1, the sharing. It's linked with the achievement of equality. You use the sharing, sympathy, solidarity, life togetherness, as Prof. Stilwan would say, that for us to live together and share in the wealth that is given to us by God. This is what an African would call for, and it's supported by the Constitution. The individualistic one that is based on the principles from Europe should not be opted for. On this question, and I know it's something that has preoccupied a lot of space in society. There's a section in the Constitution, Section 25, subsection 8 of the Constitution, which permits the state to depart from any provision in the Constitution. One of the provisions in the Constitution is the payment of compensation when you expropriate land. So subsection 8 says, no, you can depart from that provision. At any rate, any right in the Bill of Rights may be limited, except the right to equality as well as dignity. So the payment of compensation, my brother, it's something that can be departed from, and it's permitted in the Constitution. The state is aware of it. Why are they not doing it? When I was in Parliament the other day, I raised, why are you not coming with a legislative measure, an act of Parliament, to implement this provision other than amending the Constitution? But if you still want to amend the Constitution, amend it. But in the meantime, have a legislative measure to ensure that by the time you finish this amendment, which is going to take long, at least there will be something that you do which facilitates access to land, inclusive of exclusion of compensation in terms of subsection 8. I think I've done justice to the question, unless there's a follow-up.
In fact, there's quite a number of questions that are being asked by the participants here, but then also looking at the time, we are likely not to cover as much as we want to cover. and I'm advised by the host that I should close off the questions. My apologies to everyone who has posted their questions here. But I would then like to take this opportunity to give the opportunity to the ABSIP, it's ABSIP, no, BLA, the Black Lawyers Association, to give a message of support, and then after that they'll be followed by the leadership of SIPIP to also give a message of support, and then we'll then move to vote of thanks. Mr. Chidi, thank you very much for the wisdom and the knowledge that you've shared.
Thank you very much for the time. Thank you. Good evening.
Can we have the leadership from BLA taking the floor? Do we have confirmation of the BLA leadership? If they are still not ready, we can have SIPIP giving a message of support, and then they will follow through after they've done so.
Evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lefam Konyani. I am representing SIPIP, which is short for the South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners. On behalf of SIPIP, we would like to thank ABSIP for making us a part of this. And as Mr. Chidi said, for us to generate wealth or get wealth, we need to share. So we'd like to thank ABSIP for making us a part of this lovely webinar, and for more to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have the leadership of BLA? I believe that they could be ready by now.
Fraternal greetings from us, the Black Lawyers Association Student Chapter, University of Limpopo branch. Can you all hear me? I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible, my leader. You can continue.
Okay. Yes. Good evening, everybody. This is Tapelo SD Malachi, the Deputy Chairperson of the BLASC. We would like to thank ABSIP for such a progressive, I would call it a lecture, but I believe that the time was really short. There were a lot of questions that I posed that I needed answers from. And but yeah, I believe that next time there'll be more time. And yeah, thank you very much, leadership of ABSIP.
I think for many of the questions that were posed, I would advise that we get a copy of the second book. It answers most of the questions that were raised in the questions. So just kindly make arrangements either with ABSIP to get the copy of the book. I believe that they will have access to Mr. Chidi to get the copies of the book. Without any waste of time, we would like to call upon Ms. Gail. I was told that you are the one who's going to be making the vote of thanks. So can you just take the floor and give us the vote of thanks?
Thank you very much, Mr. Machie, and everyone who has joined us tonight for our last webinar as ABSIP Student Chapter at the University of Limpopo, under this topic that is very important to us as South Africans, especially Black South Africans, the economic transformative role of the land reform agenda. We'd like to extend my greetings and recognition to our chairperson, Mr. Malachi, and our secretary. We recognize the balance and power that we have, and I'm personally deeply appreciative of that. I think tonight we can agree that we have gained a lot, if not in new information, but in clarity that Mr. Chidi has shared with us, understanding the interlinks that exist between equality, dignity, and freedom, and what that means for us as Black people, how that has impacted us in the way that things were done and how land was handled in the past. I think we can all agree that understanding and getting more information on this topic enables us and empowers us as Black people to participate as better role players in the economy of South Africa. I personally now understand the difference between land reforms and reforms that include land. I think we can be able to contribute to the conversation that continues to exist amongst us and between us and the other people about land, and how land is about us, and how we learn from Mr. Chidi tonight that we should be unapologetic about what belongs to us and the role that it plays in our lives, that we come from land and it is where we get our resources and our needs. And for that reason, it is very important for us to own and to partake in it as we should. I'd like to extend my gratitude to all of our partners, SAIBIP, BLA, and ABSIP National. Would like to express deeply our appreciation to Mr. Tapiwa. Thank you so much for contributing to our student chapter, for ensuring that we always have the resources that we need to continue leading the way as we should. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
With that being said, I believe that we are officially closing off the session. I would also like to give my thanks to ABSIP and the national leadership, as well as the branch leadership and everyone else that has participated in the event. It was a very fruitful event. It is unfortunate we had it online, but then next time we should be able to have it in a more live session. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.